Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Intelligent Psycho back in here with another live discussion. So we're gonna debunk a whole lot of J. Cole critics, and we're gonna start with some that have been criticizing, his responses to his latest freestyle birthday blizzard tracks. I kind of broke down the lyrics, so I'm not gonna do that. But let me just go in particularly. Let me see. Well, first off, let me just lay this claim, but in particularly for those who I'm going to talk about in the critics, we're going to start with, of course, Fat Joe's latest comments about J. Cole, where he basically has stated specifically like he does not look at J. Cole the same, especially after his apology on the Dreamville Festival stage back in 2024. And he said he didn't come outside, made claims such as, you can't talk your gang stuff and then all of a sudden run and hide and tuck your tail between your legs, pretty much in a sense. And he was relaying that back to Jadakiss after Jadakiss pretty much made the announcement that J. Cole had multiple different projects coming out, including, of course, with everybody's most anticipated album, The Fall Off. So Fat Joe basically responded by saying, no, I'm not. You basically sounding like the internet, and you're basically sounding like you're speaking from fans and people on the internet that saying that you can't do that for the apology. But he said, no, I'm speaking from the hip hop sense. I'm speaking from a battle sense, competitive nature stance. So we're gonna start with him. Then I'm gonna talk about two, and then of course new Rory and Mal from New Rory and Mal. So they basically had some quotes. So let me go into detail on that too. All right, so basically, Mal from New Royal Mall basically made a claim that J. Cole has not reached out to Drake since the Kendrick Lamar apology. And he was saying that on his latest podcast. So what happened was Mal, like a lot of other fans, wants J. Cole to address his relationship with Drake and Kendrick Lamar on the fall off and explain the beef dynamics. After J. Cole ducked the Kendrick Lamar battle with Drake and still generated headlines, many fans had hoped that he would move on from the situation of his upcoming album, The Fall Off, especially after the Port Antonio track call talked about the situation. Marlon New Mori Mall podcast is not one of those fans. Rather, he instantly shared that Cole hasn't spoken to Drizzy since apologizing to K-Dot. As such, podcaster hopes that the Dreamville MC will address this highly anticipated LP on this album. He better explain why he had a conversation with Kendrick and then never spoke to Drake after that again in his life. Mal open opinion concerning J. Cole. That's nasty. I F with Cole. Cole can rap his tail off, but it's in the bars and why you didn't do that and why you didn't do that what you did to Drake, bro. Don't give me all this young Simba and N-word that. And no, tell the world why you came off the tour with Drake and Drake gave you your first number one and then you never spoke to Drake again. He pretty much is implying. Now, my thing is he's making all these claims. Let me just say this. When he said Drake gave you your first number one, so I'm pretty much it's implied that he's talking about with first person shooter. And how pretty much that song was actually number two charting song on iTunes. If you did not really look at that, if you don't really count if you count the iTunes, because that's actually people actually purchasing music for physical sales and digital sales combined. So that actually was at number two. But if he really would have gave his first number one song in Mal's mind, because pretty much has been close to Drake, a bit close to his camp for pretty much about 20 years. So if you claim these claims, why don't you actually start fact checking? But let me just tell Mal this, since he doesn't like to fact check, I'm actually going to do that for him. Since he made the claim that Drake gave J. Cole is first number one. Now let's look at Cole's net worth. I don't like to look at these. I like to look at guys' actual total net worth, but let's just look at this from. Let me just look at this standpoint. So this is how much of J. Cole's net worth has been made. The 39. Well, this is at the time before he turned 40 years old. So this is according to the Forbes list of the hottest of the most of all of the latest current MCs from the 90s and the early 2000s, from the 2010s and onward, and a net worth in total for 2025. So it says he has an impressive net worth of $60 million. According to the street. Oh, hey, what's going on? Noah's Life 041. Hey, what's going on? J. Cole's net worth is mostly established from a career on the mic, as well as purchase for producing beats and onstage performances across the globe. He turned from a dollar to a dream into $60 million net worth. Oh, hey, I'm doing all right. Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in. So, yeah, that in and of itself. Now, okay, here we go. Now, let's look at this. So, since Maul doesn't like to fact check this, I'm going to actually do it itself. J. Cole, a multi-hyphenate rapper and producer and newly minted professional basketball player, is redefining the entertainment industry and cashing checks with tens of millions in the process. Here's what his net worth is now. Alright, so let's look at this. Yeah, celebrity net worth pegs Cole's wealth at around $60 million, well earned from decades spent for the deepest trenches for the music industry, as a songwriter, rapper, and producer, and later an entrepreneur and philanthropist. Hold on. Oh. I can actually get this thing right here. Alright, here we go. A gifted wordsmith, Cole has collaborated from everybody such as Janet Jackson to Missy Elliott to Nicki Minaj, Kendrick Lamar, and Drake and Rihanna. He has released 6 platinum certified albums, exceeding 1 million in sales, as certified by the Recording Industry Associated in America. In addition, he received. Oh wait, hold on. Let's look at that. Oh, let's talk about something. Let's talk about Kendrick. Hold on. All right, here we go. Graduated high school with a 4.2 GPA, Cole received an academic scholarship to attend St. John's University in New York City. The city was exactly where he was hoping to go further in his rap career, telling hip hop and more. If you want to study Islam, you go to Mecca. The same thing goes for hip hop, I guess. In college, Cole relished learning about poetry, history, music, and film, and he enjoyed hearing lectures from guest artists like Nikki Giovanni and Spike Lee. I'm not gonna read you everything on this one. Hold on. I'm trying to get exactly. Of course, so yeah, here we go. Like I was saying, getting back to the albums. So yeah, with his first studio album, Sideline Story, Cole Sideline Story back in 2011, where it hit #1 Billboard in its first week. It depicted his early struggles in breaking to the music industry, and it would earn him a Grammy nomination as the year's best new artist. Of course, after that, back in January 2013, his second album, Born Sinner, was a darker tale of Cole's struggles with his demons, including greed and depression, which ultimately ended in redemption. It sampled Jay-Z and Notorious B.I.G. and featured TLC on the song Crooked Smile, and Kendrick Lamar Forbidden Fruit, which that was sample of Tribe Called Quest, Relaxation, Electric Relaxation. In 2014, Cole pretty much flew out. He flew the state with protesters telling Complex News that his initial reaction was disbelief that the police brutality was happening again to the black community. Before asking what we can do, he said that there was us to listen to. In December 2014, Forest Hills Drive released, but many considered Cole his finest. And also, it won top rap album at the year's Billboard Music Awards, as well as Album of the Year at BET's Hip Hop Awards. And of course, after that, released a documentary, which culminated his concert performance of 2014 Forest Hills Drive World Tour. Cole's fourth album in 2016, For Your Eyes Only, released, and it made his debut to the #1 album on Billboard. The album was an opus of life of his best friend Jace McMillan, and pretty much was an open letter to his daughter, because who was telling about his father who was caught up in drugs and was murdered on the streets at the age of 22. All right, so you get the point, guys. So the point I'm making, and why I made this whole article in relation to Cole is because I'm sick and tired of the hip hop media trying to disparage this man's name and image because of the fact that he apologized and backed out of an ongoing battle and beef that had absolutely nothing to do with him. Yeah, you released a diss record, okay? Everybody releases a somewhat subtle shot and diss record, and kind of just jumped in the thing and looked back and deflect and reflect and made it to a point where it was like, yo, we can't go beyond what we can go beyond for. And it was just like, why in the world he has to be punished and held accountable when a guy like Drake, who undoubtedly is going to civil cases, going to civil court cases and trials, bring up information about another artist's documentations of actually of his residue of the revenue and music of albums and such, and also relationships with his own family relatives, bringing that up in the court case and court documents, and also court case and court documentations of this man's collection of music royalty and publishing. Why do you want this stuff to be brought out into the air, to the court system? And then also claims about Not Like Us and streaming bots, streaming and using and boosting the song. So why are you not holding this man accountable, still listening to this guy's music, Drake's music I'm talking about, but then you want to hold Cole accountable and make it seem like, oh, it's about hip hop. No, if Glasses Malone, if Fat Joe and Maul and Rory, all these people want to have their sort of affiliations with Cole, and you don't like this man, why are you listening to this guy's music? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Why are you listening to this guy's music? And because you're holding him accountable, holding his own feet to the fire more than you're holding a guy who is pretty much bringing lawsuits and doing things out of the ordinary that's exponentially worse, that is not hip hop, and taking everything with him with a grain of salt, taking everything what he's doing in the court case with a grain of salt, defending every constant action he does. But the constant action that Cole does, because he's not so far out in the open public, you want to chastise him. You want to downplay him. And so that's why I read what I read about the whole net worth. So you can pretty much look at it. And people are mad, mainly people inside of Rock Nation camp and Jay-Z. They don't want to be affiliated with Cole, because they looking at Cole and saying, yo, you want to buy back your masters and everything, buy back your masters and royalties. He still owns the revenue from what he did with 24 back after 2014 Forest Hills Drive. He's been talking about this for years of music royalties. That's why he says in the lines, dumb ends so their soul solution. How come your tour? How come your streams is selling? How come your streams is doing numbers, but your tours ain't? But your tours ain't touring. Like, who do you think he's really talking about in those lines? If I'm talking about Cole, like, who do you think Cole is talking about? You know, in a similar sense, where he's getting back at rappers. Now let's look at this. So, let me see something real quick. But people are criticizing Cole for the Winter Storm song and of course Brock Zoo, but they're not really looking at the lines that and really paying attention to what he's saying because he's really speaking some game. Now, a lot of people are probably gonna get mad because about what he says in these lines here. Hold on. Okay, so I didn't even really go into too much detail about these lines because there might be something in here that really is specifically talking about another guy, but here's but talking about another MC. But here's one in particular. I'm trying to go at. Here we go. He says, I understand you imagine working hard as you can. The album is hoping it charges your brand, but as soon as you drop it, the world's ignoring again. You're wondering why till you start noticing the trend. Drama enhances the attention brought to the fans. A popular channel, so you want to hop on the band. Now, in these particular lines, people are pretty much kind of not really happy, and because especially if you don't know, I think he's kind of referring to, in particularly, the landscape and rap and how they look at it. Of course, briefly involving what happened with the feud, but also looking at it from a standpoint of looking at older rappers and criticizing them, and who's pretty much downplaying and trying to downplay his whole career, trying to downplay his whole image, and then also looking at people like Joey Badass, for example, who did a response on "Sorry Not Sorry" in his little 4 disc records, trying to go back at Ray Vaughn and Daylight when he pretty much said might delete later, but I dang sure Joey won't. Dudes, I want all the smoke. So he's pretty much in responding to what Joey Badass said, trying to throw his name and salt in the wound and try to throw his name into the mud. Like, people are not really mad. People who are fans of Joey Badass, who are on the East Coast, are definitely not happy with what Cole said, but really Cole was saying the truth. And people are going to get mad at that because they don't like it because he's saying it. Then there's people like Charlamagne the God when he's responding to lines that he said about Jid, where he said, if hip hop is back, that Jid should chart platinum. Anything less than that, it means y'all capping. So Charlamagne the God said in his latest episode of The Breakfast Club with Envy and Jess Hilarious that J. Cole should have done more for Jid's album God Does Like Ugly in promotion. Now, in a sense, I can honestly understand what Charlamagne is saying in there, but at the end of the day, I don't think Jid really needed Cole to be on the record because it just really wouldn't make any sense. Honestly, it really wouldn't make any sense at all, at this point, because I think Jid has done so well as far as his rapping ability and the structure of his music. I just think that Cole, the only thing he's really doing now is just backing it up and just backing him up. Now, he probably could have him on the fall off. That could be a really good boost, and I think that would actually really help since it's a double album, a double disc. So I think that could help having him on the record. So that would make sense. But for me, I just believe in my honest eyes that I think Cole is going in a direction where these are just fillers. These are just throwaway verses, and that ones that didn't make the album, but it's more of like appetizers. And I like lines in the beginning that people are not talking about, but they're steady criticizing, his response to other rappers. Um, where he says, "These niggas reckless, trying to disrespect the Lord of the church. Get disconnected from your source, just like a cord at your birth. Like, I'm from an alternate dimension. I got lost inside of this one. Like, dog, why are people not talking about these lines? But they're so fixated and so focused about him going at other artists. I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it. It don't make sense to me. Just don't make sense to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's stupid. So yeah, my honest thoughts about this whole thing was, I feel like, I don't know if he did speak to Kendrick or not. I don't know how true that is, and I don't know what the conversation would have been like. But if he did speak to Kendrick, if he did speak to him about certain things involving what happened in the feud, or what happened with him and Drake or whatever. I don't know if that was the case or not. I don't know the answers to that. But if that was the case, he does have some information that he wants to get off his chest. So, and if anything, honestly, oh wait a minute, I didn't mean to go back to that. But if anything, it does mean something. It does mean something how it's so obvious, it's so tantamount now that everything is coming out to the woodwork, coming out into the forefront. And once the album comes out, I will be doing a review on it. Man, like, if a lot of people don't know, Cole is ready to really sit on that crown and really take it. And this gonna be some all-time greatness. The fall off is gonna be some all-time greatness right here, and I cannot wait to hear it. And it's only gonna get better, and it's only gonna make people really tune in even more. But if anything, if you don't have anything nice to really say about this man, then why speak on his music, man? Then just why speak on it? Because at the end of the day, it's only gonna make matters worse, bro. It's only gonna make matters worse for you, and it's only gonna make matters worse for the next man. So yeah. All right, so that's all I got to say about that. That's all I got to say about in response to those critics. I want to talk about something interesting too, involving Don Lemon. Oh, wait a minute. Why did I do that? Why in the world did I do that? All right. So for those of you who don't know, Don Lemon was okay. For those of you who don't know, of course, Don Lemon was arrested in an attack on Press for Freedom advocates have said. Pretty much, if you don't know, Don Lemon was the latest CNN host and co-anchor on CNN, who pretty much had controversial opinions and statements in regards to the political landscape of today, even during the Biden era, during the Obama era, and then of course during what's going on in its current iteration with Trump. So he currently criticized President Donald Trump's administration over his former arrest of CNN anchor Don Lemon and president of journalist Georgia Fort in connection to Minnesota's church protest, calling the moves unconsequential. Don Lemon was arrested in Los Angeles January 29th, according to a statement from his attorney Abby Lowell, and he called an arrest an unprecedented attack on the First Amendment. The First Amendment exists to protect journalists for those roles is to shine light on the truth and those power accountable, Lowell said. There's no more important time for the people like Don to be doing this work, and the statement did not provide any information about the charges Lemon was facing. The New York Times and CNN reported these charges stem from his involvement covering a protest inside in the Minnesota church January the 18th. Lemon is one of several journalists in attendance at the January 18th protest. A city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Demonstrators alleged that the church pastor worked in the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. In a nearly 7-hour live stream on his YouTube channel, Lemon spoke with congressional members, protesters, and as one of the church pastors. A federal magistrate judge previously rejected a proposed criminal complaint from the Department of Justice and charges against Lemon connected to the protest. CNN, Reuters, and CBS News reported on January 22nd, city's anonymous sources. Attorney General Pam Bondi confirmed the arrest of Lemon as well as the fort and activist Traherim Jean Cruz and Jamel Lindell Lindy on January 30th on Twitter. Nothing more, nothing less. Jane Fonda says Don was doing his job. Jane Fonda, an Oscar-winning actress and outspoken activist, showed up outside the federal courthouse in Los Angeles on Friday to slam the Trump administration over the move to prosecute Lemon. Don Lemon is a professional journalist, and he and his producer were doing their job, nothing more, nothing less, and he's been arrested. Fonda told reporters outside the courthouse, "I know Don Lemon, my husband, created CNN, and I will fight for their right to speak, which is guaranteed in our Constitution." And Fonda has been outspoken critic of President Donald Trump and his administration approach to immigration enforcement, and she urged Americans to stand up for their constitutional rights. That's how autocrats act, she said. We have to speak up when a red line is crossed like this. We cannot be silent, and I won't. So yeah, my thoughts pretty much are plain and simple. Don Lemon is experiencing what a lot of former CNN anchors and panelists are going through in any iteration. It's like they're going through a lot of they're pretty much going through a lot of what is being considered and kind of Stockholm syndrome. And what I mean by that is like an experience of racial transgressions and just desertions and disconnect, especially since Trump has taken over. You pretty much are seeing an all-out, you're pretty much seeing MAGA pretty much way into the forefront, way out in the open, and they're already showing their true colors and how they feel. You're not letting journalists want to come and report the information that they're supposed to be reporting on, and you're not giving them that time and the freedom to do their job and commit to educating the people, educating the youth, and educating outside of the buildings, because they're not offending you. They're not offending you in any given cause. You just gotta let the journalists do their job, and they're not doing that. And those are things that are a problem in society in America right now, because a lot of people are hyper focused and hyper fixated on what's going on in Minneapolis, what's going on with the ICE agents. That's why we as the civilians have been campaigning on why we should have been abolishing ICE a long time ago. And to allow this arrest to happen against Don Lemon is just crazy. It's just absolutely insane and wrongdoing on all given fronts and costs. See, I didn't like it at all, but I think I'm about to see now that he's I think I just saw that he just had been released a little while longer the day afterwards. But yeah, man, this is a kind of This is pretty much attacking. This is pretty much is attacking on press freedom. Is attacking on the press as much as they possibly can. It's crazy, and they should really enforce some face acting laws that really should not allow things like this to even take place and happen. But yeah, those are my thoughts, man. Those are my thoughts about the whole Don Lemon situation. Let me know what you guys think about that down in the comment section. And then the last thing I want to talk about for tonight, I'm going to talk about the NBA. I didn't get a chance to cover some games last night, so I'll probably do some more today. Mainly I'll talk about is pretty much the story in the Eastern Conference. The Detroit Pistons, they won by 7 over the Golden State Warriors. The thing is with the Pistons, they're playing that old school style fundamental sounding basketball and aggressive defense. They was applying it in the first half. The Golden State Warriors picked it up in the second half. And mainly it came from, of course, Steph Curry and then pretty much everybody else, like Draymond, of course, Moses Moody, and then Al Horford to pick up some slack. Brzezinski, and then of course Anthony Melton off the bench with 18. But the story pretty much for the Pistons is Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, and feeding inside of Jalen Duren, and also Duncan Robinson was 5 for 10 from the 3-point line. He was on fire. The thing is with the Pistons, they know how to move. They move the ball around really well, and they know how to get it. They know how to move. They move the ball around really well. They attack in the basket when they can, and also, Tobias Harris still being there, he provides that good defense along with Asar Thompson. He's not gonna allow you to. You're not gonna let them get off and get close to 20 some points. They only average around 7 or 13 around in their range. So you don't need them to really provide what they can provide. All you need them to do is just really play aggressive, sound-minded defense and get stops when they can. And they also got guys like Holland off the bench, Jaden Ivey, who could also provide a little spark when they can. Just they didn't really do it last night. But when they can, they really put themselves in the best opportunity for them. So shout out to the Pistons. I think that they're going to be fine moving forward. Also, Isaiah Stewart, he had a solid game. He had 14 points and 5 rebounds. Yeah, just the Pistons had an all-around game from their bench and pretty much their main 5 starters. They was really providing everything. At least 4 players was in double figures, so that's always good to see that. And then 2 players off the bench was in double figures, so that's always good to see for them. But with Golden State, since the loss of Jimmy Butler, they've been pretty much up in the air. They've been floating around. I don't really think they're gonna be doing much. Even if they do get in the playoffs, they're probably gonna pretty much get knocked out in the first round. I just think the Steph Curry era and the Golden State Warriors years are over with, and you're gonna have to see a lot of change in the new. You're gonna get a lot of new faces and new smiles and new faces, man. The Pistons are pretty much have arrived. What we saw last year against the Knicks wasn't an aberration, wasn't a fluke. They just pretty much are up in the ante and up in the level, up in their game. Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets, as he made his return, and they beat the LA Clippers 122 to 109. Joker had 31 points. Jamal Murray had 20 points. Peyton Watson, he had 21 points. Off the bench, Valanciunas, he had 11, and Tim Hardaway Jr. he had 22 points. With the Denver Nuggets, that return of Jokic, you can see the impact as he returned. They played really well still without him. That just goes to show you that they're competitive as a team. David Abelman is a good coach, and the Nuggets have really good presence from their bench. Like I said, with Hardaway and Cam Johnson, Bruce Brown, like these guys really provide a little bit of a spark that they wanted, and I think that that's going to really help them when it gets to the postseason because they're currently now in the 3 seed. The Clippers, we don't talk about them. They're not going to pretty much be much of anything, any news, any help. They really should have let they got pretty much one of the oldest teams in the entire NBA. That just goes to show you how much a lot of veteran presence, but a lot of slower, timid, and pacing that they have been. Where the Nuggets are a lot more energized, a lot more aggressive, get down the hill, get inside and outside of perimeter. Yeah, they pretty much are gathering and put the team in onus. So yeah, those are my thoughts about that. I think the Nuggets, to me, in my opinion, are probably the team that you got to look out for in the playoffs because they got really good presence on the off of their bench now, and their defense is getting more aggressive, and they're attacking the rim a lot more. And with the return of Jokic, that's another really good big man presence that's going to really pose a threat to not only just the San Antonio Spurs but the OKC Thunder. So the Thunder better be careful because the Spurs could probably stop you from playing a half-court game, but when the Nuggets play a full-court game, get up the hill, they took you to 7 games for a reason. They can mess around and pull an upset on you. So I wouldn't count them out at all. I wouldn't count them out at all. Then we got the Raptors and the Orlando Magic. The Magic won by 10. 130 to 120. Magic were led by the way of Wendell Carter, Anthony Black, and Desmond Bane. Bane had 32 points, and Paolo came through. Also, he had 20. They played a lot of extensive minutes, but they was able to get the key timely stops that they did. Jalen Suggs came in. Also, he had 14 points. Their bench really didn't come through and help, but what their main starters did is they just pretty much they played a lot of extensive minutes, and they got enough buckets and got enough stops on the Raptors to really do what they did and really stay in tune and staying locked in. So that was the key, just pretty much staying locked in and really just staying the course of the game. The Raptors, they got work to do on their defensive end because one thing that they don't really do is they can't guard the 3-point line very well. But they got good, young players, young guys who can become studs like Emmanuel Quickly, Scotty Barnes definitely at the 4, and RJ Barrett. He's okay. And they don't really have no bench. They don't really have like I said, they don't really have no interior defense to get out to the 3-point line, perimeter defense to get out to the 3-point line. Because the Magic pretty much were just lacing it up from 3. They at least shot 27 3-pointers. Made 27 3-pointers, and I think they shot like about 39 to 40. So they was able to get a lot of them off. So that just goes to show you the Raptors really need to work on their defense and really need to get things going. So, yeah, those are my thoughts from that. All right, guys, I'm going to get on out of here. Thank y'all for who was ever watching, liking and sharing and subscribing. I'm out. Peace.